1 million packages did not arrive. Thousands of elderly people waiting for medicine. Small towns are turning off the lights in their warehouses. And FedEx has just laid off 100,000 employees. This is no longer a typical cut. This is a silent warning about an America that is gradually losing its ability to be self-sufficient. FedEx, a name that once represented speed, reliability, and connectivity, has now become the starting point for a chain of breakdowns stretching from Tennessee to California. But what makes everything terrifying is not the speed of the collapse, but the silence of the system. In this video, let's delve into the 10 states on the brink as FedEx lays off 100,000 employees in the US. Not just the surface, but also delving into the underlying causes, exposing the cracks you once overlooked, and reconnecting the fragmented pieces of America waiting to be understood correctly. Are you ready? Let's start with the place once likened to the heart of logistics in America, where just one misstep can cause the entire economic body to wobble: Tennessee. Do you remember the most distinctive sound in Memphis every morning? It's not the sound of car horns, but the rumbling of container wheels at the FedEx Memphis World Hub, the largest air cargo hub in the United States and the logistics heart of the world. At its peak, this place handled up to 3.3 million orders each day, connecting over 220 countries and territories. But today, that heart seems to be stopping beat by beat. A series of distribution warehouses in the suburbs of Memphis have started turning off the lights at night. The drivers' parking lots are nearly empty, and the gas stations in the industrial area have reduced consumption by up to 40% in just the first quarter of 2025. And the more concerning thing, Shelby County, where FedEx's headquarters is located, has just recorded a threefold increase in unemployment claims, according to Labor Department data. No protests, no major warnings, just a quiet but certain decline. Mr. Walter, a former maintenance technician for 25 years, now working as a security guard with minimum wage, shared, "I never expected to be retired and still have to work. But I'm lucky. Many others lost everything." The issue is not just FedEx cutting 100,000 employees across the US, but the complete dependence of a state on a single business. When FedEx grows, the entire state rejoices. But when FedEx slows down, Tennessee has no backup plan prepared. Perhaps the greatest fear is not losing the job, but rather the feeling. This place used to be important to America. If the heart of America's logistics stops beating, how much longer can the arms of the economy, from small grocery stores to local hospitals, continue to move? The people of Tennessee do not ask for much. They just want to continue working, continue living with the dignity and simplicity they have always lived with. But now, amidst a series of empty warehouses, perhaps what they need is a system that doesn't let everything depend on just one heartbeat. And if you think Tennessee has had enough pain, then look to Indiana, where towns once called Hope and Liberty are selling off their last plots of land. In southern Indiana, there is a town called Hope. But now, the most common sight on Main Street is not Hope, but for sale signs. Indiana was once the golden crossroads of the American Midwest, where major transportation routes intersected and logistics hubs like Plainfield, Jeffersonville, and Greenwood provided over 18,000 jobs from FedEx, primarily for rural communities. But when FedEx laid off workers en masse, a quiet domino effect began to occur. Suburban schools started consolidating classes due to a lack of students. Public buses are so empty that their frequency of service has been cut in half. And the weekend market, once a place that brought the community together, now has only a few stalls with for rent signs hanging. A 63-year-old farmer who used to drive a truck for FedEx shared, "I used to think I lived in a peaceful small town, but now it feels like it's waiting to be closed forever. What is lost is not just a job, but rather the break in a whole family tradition." Here, there are families with 3 generations who have all worked in the same warehouse, on the same transportation line. They call it a family business. But now, no one wants to continue. And then a bitter paradox emerged. Indiana, once a place where immigrants saw opportunities, is now where the locals themselves are packing up their hopes and leaving. They are not just moving houses, but leaving behind the community dream that has been intertwined for many generations. In the past few months, a group of former FedEx drivers in Hope have come together to start a local produce delivery service. They use old trucks, a simple app, and serve within a 50-mile radius. Not much money, but each order is a chance for them to keep the community connected. Instead of waiting for big companies to return, they are saving themselves. Once a town loses its reason for people to wake up every morning, then it is no longer a place to live, but merely to exist. And then, this question began to echo across America. How many other towns are becoming Hope, where the name remains, but the faith has departed? But Indiana's story is not unique. Next, let's go to the state where technology seemed to save everything, but it is precisely where we witness the greatest paradox: rapid development and persistent poverty. The trucks that used to fill the logistics yards in the Inland Empire now lie covered in dust. An elderly security guard shook his head, half jokingly. Now I see more self-driving trucks than real drivers. It's not just a saying, but a farewell to a system that once operated with humans, and is now leaving them behind. California used to be the heart of American technology. From Silicon Valley to Fresno, from Sacramento to Los Angeles, this place once led in logistics, AI, automation, and supply chains. FedEx operates dozens of distribution centers here, and every day, tens of thousands of orders are coordinated from this very state. But then AI developed. Smart scanners replace inventory staff. Self-driving cars replace drivers at night. And the warehouses that used to be lit 24/7 have now turned into abandoned parking lots, with only the automatic vacuum robots still running silently. A 29-year-old girl who used to be a FedEx coordinator in Fresno shared, "I used to handle 3,000 orders a day. Now I sell water at a gas station. Technology replaced me so quickly that I didn't even realize I'd been replaced. It seemed that AI and automation would make life easier. But in California, they are accelerating the process of removing humans from the very systems they once operated. The issue is not technology, but the way people are being quietly sidelined. Unemployment in the Inland Empire has increased by 46% in just 6 months, mostly affecting logistics, delivery, and supply chain workers. This not only created thousands of unemployed people, but also triggered a chain crisis. Support services are closing one after another. Ironically, California is the richest state in America. However, the people here are fighting for every manual labor job. It seemed that technology would save them, but now it is cutting off the last remaining connections between the middle class and the American dream. A glittering Silicon Valley. But it can't save the families living just 10 minutes away next to the warehouse. But the light has not been completely extinguished. In Riverside, a group of laid-off drivers is setting up a manual delivery network for local farmers' cooperatives. No AI, no robots. In Sacramento, a community college has begun transitioning its curriculum from traditional logistics to AI logistics management, aiming to turn those who are being replaced into technology operators. No one is against technology, but people want a chance to coexist with it. And if you think California is the story of the present, then Kentucky will show you something even more frightening. A state where an entire generation of middle-aged people is being left behind, not because they are lazy, but because they are too loyal to a job that no longer has a place for them. In the abandoned parking lot behind an old FedEx distribution center in Lexington, there is a faded truck. It used to be a means of livelihood. Now it is the sleeping place of the man who drove it for 22 years. Kentucky, a state once known as the hard-working backbone of the American Midwest, is now witnessing a quiet decline. FedEx was once a major employer in Louisville, Lexington, and small towns along the transportation corridor. With over 12,000 workers once employed directly or indirectly in the logistics chain, Kentucky used to rely on the stability that delivery jobs provided. However, now the most stable thing is actually the unease. That 58-year-old man used to be a FedEx driver, driving 10 hours a day, raising 2 children, and paying off the mortgage. Until one morning, he received a termination notice. No fault, no apologies. It's simply a cutback due to operational adjustments. He shared, "I don't know where to apply for a job again. I didn't think I would have to start over at this age. This is no longer an individual story." The town of Shepherdsville, which once had the largest FedEx and Amazon warehouses in the state, has now partially closed, causing nearly 1,500 people to lose their jobs within 3 months. Local restaurants, auto repair shops, and even medical clinics have reduced their operating hours due to the lack of customers. Now, when the people themselves are not waiting for a miracle, they have taken action. In the suburbs of Bowling Green, a group of laid-off FedEx drivers have come together to start a local delivery service, using their personal vehicles to support small stores that cannot afford to hire large corporations. They are not competing. They are filling the gap that the system itself has left. If a person can be left behind after 20 years of hard work in just 20 minutes, then what are we building? And if Kentucky makes you choke up over a generation being forgotten, then Texas, once a paradise for immigrants to make a living, is now where they are trapped with no way out. Every morning, dozens of people quietly gather outside a defunct FedEx distribution center in Irving. They don't come to work. They come to see if there are any abandoned packages they can pick up. Texas, the state known as the land of opportunity, with hundreds of thousands of immigrant workers who have come here to change their lives. For many years, logistics centers in Houston, Dallas, El Paso, San Antonio have become the starting point for countless American dreams, even if they involve just transportation, loading, unloading, and order coordination jobs. But when FedEx suddenly cut thousands of positions, that dream shattered and many people fell into a legal void. No job, no insurance, no benefits. A 33-year-old Central American man who used to work 2 shifts in a warehouse in Fort Worth shared, "I came here with nothing, but at least I had a job. Now, I still have 2 hands, but no place to use them." The issue is not just jobs disappearing, but entire communities being silently pushed to the margins. The lodgings for logistics workers are now nearly half empty. The small churches that used to distribute food weekly to FedEx employees now distribute it to the very people who once contributed. And those who used to send money back home are now living off the help of friends in similar situations. But in the most difficult times, the community is still striving together. In the suburbs of Houston, a group of unemployed immigrants has organized a community delivery model, where community members deliver food and supplies to each other by bicycle, motorcycle, or even on foot at almost no cost. They not only provide services, but also rebuild trust among each other. When those who come here to make a living have to struggle to survive, who is the American dream still meant for? But that's not the most painful part. Come to Arizona, where the harsh weather pales in comparison to the chilling silence of a once vibrant logistics town, now only haunted by its eerie quiet. In the 110-degree heat of the Arizona desert, a warehouse spanning thousands of square meters stands alone. No sound of trucks. There are no sounds of people. Only the sound of the wind chimes remains. Arizona was once the vital crossroads of the American Southwest. With a dense logistics network in Tolleson, Casa Grande, and Phoenix, this state is a hub for thousands of shipments each day, connecting the West Coast and the inland. FedEx once provided more than 15,000 direct and indirect jobs, leading to the development of the entire community. The coffee shop opens at 3 a.m. to welcome night drivers. Schools adjust their schedules according to shift changes. The church organized a special service for logistics workers. But now, everything is just a thing of the past. In just 6 months, the unemployment rate in some areas around the distribution centers quadrupled. And worse yet, a chain reaction is quietly spreading. Schools are starting to merge classes due to too few students. Local medical services reduce their hours due to a shortfall in tax revenue. The small grocery store no longer has enough revenue to survive. A night security guard at the old FedEx center said, "I've been working here for 12 years. Every night, I see vehicles coming and going continuously. Now I see more dust than tire tracks." The unemployment rate in logistics areas like Tolleson and Casa Grande has increased by more than 400% in just 6 months. More than 70% of small stores around the warehouses reported a revenue drop of at least half, while the cost of living continues to rise steadily. Arizona is the state that adopted automation earliest in the logistics system. But as machines accelerate, humans slow down and then are left behind. So, in the end, does technology come to support or to replace? Do these small initiatives have the power to save an entire community? How do you think technology should be regulated so that it doesn't leave people behind? And if Arizona makes you ache with its overwhelming silence, then New York will send chills down your spine as the collapse occurs right in the midst of a noisy, bustling city where no one thought it could fall. Right in the heart of the city, dazzling with lights, the supermarket shelves are completely empty. The elderly stand confused in front of the pharmacy, and somewhere in the basements of Manhattan, many delivery trucks have been gathering dust for months. New York used to be the final destination for millions of packages moving every day across the United States. The distribution centers in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens used to operate in perfect harmony 24/7, receiving, distributing, and re-delivering. FedEx, along with other major carriers, helps ensure that more than 8 million residents have access to goods, medicines, and essentials within less than 48 hours. That is what made New York the city that never runs out of anything, until now. However, since FedEx cut its workforce, suburban logistics warehouses have been overwhelmed, delayed, or completely shut down. Independent pharmacies in Queens are missing more than 30 common medications each week. Meanwhile, some supermarkets in the Bronx have reduced their inventory by 20 to 30% due to disrupted delivery schedules. Freelance delivery workers are working overtime to exhaustion, but it's still not enough to make up for it. An employee at a small supermarket chain in Brooklyn said, "We used to receive 2 shipments a day. Now we only get 1 every 3 days." When the goods arrive, people fight over them like in the subsidized economy era. After the wave of layoffs, the average delivery time in NYC increased from 1.9 days to 4.7 days, more than doubled. The rate of people over 65 reporting delays in receiving chronic medication due to shipping delays has increased by more than 60% compared to the same period last year. Ironically, the wealthiest and most modern city in America, where everything was once just a click away, is now becoming a place where the elderly have to wait for each essential package. We can call a luxury car in 5 minutes, but we have to wait 5 days for high blood pressure medication. How long do you think a modern city can survive if it loses its most basic operational capability, which is delivery? What are we prioritizing, and who are we leaving behind in a city where people seem never to have to wait? And if New York makes you ache with its fragmentation right in the midst of prosperity, then Florida will make you startle, because even the dream retirement destination is no longer a safe haven. Florida was once the symbol of the American retirement dream. With year-round warm sunshine, affordable housing, and a smoothly operating logistics system, this state is home to more than 4.6 million people over 65 years old, the highest in the United States. Every day, hundreds of thousands of orders for essentials, medications, and medical equipment are delivered right to the door, thanks to the dense delivery networks of FedEx, Amazon, UPS, and others. However, since FedEx's workforce reduction, major distribution centers in Orlando, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale have been experiencing prolonged delays. Heart medications, insulin, hearing aids, arriving late every week. Many retirement communities have reported increased anxiety and stress among their residents. In addition, some elderly men and women have to go to the pharmacy by themselves, even though they no longer have the strength to walk far or drive. A caregiver at a senior living community in Sarasota shared, "They used to live peacefully, but now, every morning when they wake up, the first thing they do is ask each other, 'Has anyone received their delivery today?'" The number of overdue prescriptions in Florida increased by more than 220% in the last quarter, according to reports from major retail pharmacy chains. Nearly 1 in 3 elderly residents in retirement homes had to reduce their dosage or temporarily stop their medication for at least a week. It's hard to believe that a place once considered a destination for slow and peaceful living has now become a place where one must live in suspense and anticipation. Florida is not lacking in sunshine. Perhaps what they are missing is a sufficiently stable system for the elderly to live their final years in peace. The problem is that Florida is not only affected by FedEx layoffs, but also by a severe demographic imbalance. In many coastal counties, over 40% of the population are retirees, but the delivery care distribution system is designed based on the needs of a young labor force. When FedEx cut back, there was no one to replace them, because the younger generation had left, and the older generation was left behind. In St. Petersburg, a group of volunteer students developed a simple app called Hand to Hand, connecting idle young people with elderly individuals who need help fetching medicine or shopping. In Jacksonville, a non-profit organization founded by retirees is building a mini distribution system using personal vehicles, routing and delivering to elderly residents, like a small FedEx, but with heart. Are those who have dedicated their entire lives to America being treated by the system as if they are a burden? And you think, a small, humane, community model? Could it be the real solution for an aging state like Florida? And if Florida makes you choke with the helplessness of those who were once strong, then Michigan will startle you, as the very symbol of America's manufacturing industry seems to be paralyzed from within. Michigan was once the manufacturing heart of America, the birthplace of the modern automobile industry. From Detroit to Flint, from Lansing to Grand Rapids, Ford, Chrysler, and GM cars used to roll off the assembly line every day, thanks to a high-speed logistics supply chain, of which FedEx was a vital link. FedEx not only transports consumer goods, but also serves as the lifeblood for supplying parts, chips, electronic components, and production materials to thousands of factories. However, since FedEx scaled back operations and personnel, many factories have had to halt production due to a lack of raw materials, even though the workforce remains intact. In Detroit, 3 major assembly plants reduced their capacity by 40% in the last 2 months. Some assembly lines have been temporarily frozen due to not receiving sensors, batteries, and electronic components on time. Workers were forced to take temporary leave, no salary, no plan. According to the industry report, in the past quarter, Michigan lost over 18,000 indirect manufacturing jobs, not due to layoffs, but because of material shortages caused by logistics disruptions. The temporary unemployment rate in the automotive industry has tripled compared to last year. A state once proud of the saying, "We built America with our hands," is now being held back by a delay in the delivery system. Some are ready to work, but there is nothing to do. That is the tragedy of an economy fragmented into small pieces. It is noteworthy that not only FedEx, but the entire just-in-time logistics system, which operates on the principle of having goods only when needed, has become too fragile to global shocks. Michigan, which has completely relied on this model in the automotive industry, is paying the price when there are no reserves left, no backup warehouses, and no plan B. Perhaps we have relied too much on speed and forgotten about endurance. Do you think, is America in need of a logistics reconstruction, like it once had an industrial reconstruction after the war? We can make cars, but can we still create trust in stability? And if Michigan gives you chills with an industry that was once vibrant now lying dormant, then Illinois will show you. Even a national transit hub is being left in silence. Illinois, especially Chicago, was once the largest transit hub in the United States, connecting the East Coast, the West Coast, and throughout the Midwest. Every day, over 1 million packages pass through the Chicago metropolitan area via railroads, interstate highways, and the logistics centers of major corporations, with FedEx being a cornerstone. Chicago not only receives goods, but also coordinates, branches out, and distributes them to over 40 other states. But since FedEx made significant cuts at centers like Cicero, Joliet, and Rockford, the transit network has become fragmented. The backlog of goods in the warehouse exceeding 72 hours has doubled. Eastern factories are delaying deliveries due to insufficient loads from the Chicago station, and freight rail routes have reduced trips by more than 25% per week. According to data from the Illinois Department of Transportation, freight volumes on major routes in the Chicago area fell by 31% compared to the same period last year, the worst decline since the 2008 financial crisis. During the same period, nearly 4,000 logistics jobs were quietly suspended or cut. Chicago used to be the place where everything had to pass through, from steel, food, medicine to cars. But now, the very place that once connected America is being left behind because the system it once operated has forgotten how to sustain itself when a link is removed. Some areas in Chicago are experimenting with restructuring intra-regional distribution, directly connecting small producers with local stores, bypassing traditional transfer stations. Do you think, can America continue to function if places like Chicago, once the logistical heartbeat, gradually fall silent? Are we moving towards modernity, or back to the time when each city had to fend for itself? When FedEx laid off 100,000 employees, it was called a business decision. But after traveling through 10 states, we see something different. This is not just a number, but 100,000 fractures. Fractures in the system, in the community, and in the very trust of the American people. From Tennessee, where the heart of logistics has stopped beating, to Illinois, where the lifeblood of transit is becoming congested. All this reveals one truth. We have built a nation dependent on speed, forgetting to prepare for the day the system comes to a halt. Do you think we need a national backup plan for the logistics system, similar to national defense? Have you ever witnessed how your community changed after the big companies pulled out? Please share in the comments, because who knows, your story might be what someone else is waiting to hear to not feel alone. If you find this video useful, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss analyses that touch the depths of America. Hit like so the algorithm can help this message reach more people. This video does not aim to attack any business or individual. All facts, figures, and analyses are compiled from reliable sources and are reflective, not absolute assertions. We respect diverse perspectives and encourage the audience to reflect and engage in dialogue. And remember, you may not be able to change the entire system, but each time you understand another truth, you are reclaiming a part of the agency that the system has taken away.